Hi everybody, Jerseydood here again with part 3 of how I digitize a patch. Last time we were talking about how we would attack doing this. What pieces might recede and be stitched first, what pieces were the most complicated, just generally how we might be attacking this thing. I had mentioned that from my perspective the most complicated part was the purple-blue outline. I should note here, the artist is quite clever in using the outline to not only define the shape of the bear, but also to add some shading, like down here underneath the chin. Slightly heavier lines on the left-hand side than the right. Very, very well executed. Lots of detail going on, and yet very economical in the number of components necessary. So one of the ways I mentioned that we could stitch this thing would just be to make a solid big purple-blue shape and then use digitize holes to cut it out. And I've done that with this lower portion here. You can see that I have cut that out, and that took quite a bit of fiddling to add the nodes necessary to take a simple cut shape and turn it into that outline. Up here on his head, the top of his head, looks like he's wearing a toupee. You can faintly see the outline of the cutout back there. I thought I would leave that one, and we can go down in our digitize panel. First select the object, then select digitize holes. And I'm just going to crudely go around the perimeter here. I'm kind of far away, but that's alright. Alright, now we've got a cutout. And now we will zoom in, and you can clearly see what we need to do here. Now that I'm closer, I can actually pull this out and find out where the actual line should be. So I've got some square notes here. I can stick those right into the corners. There's a corner, there's a corner, there's a corner, there's one, there's a bend right there. We'll put this on either side. This can come up a little higher. Now, I just need to add some rocker nodes in here. One thing that's clever about these designers is they make it a bit easier to digitize because they normally have continuous radius arcs in their designs. They tend to work in that fashion quite often, and it makes it much easier. It's very simple visually and crisp, and it's also very easy to digitize. So I need one rocker node in the middle of that, and I just draw it up, and there I am. Now it didn't quite pull, but wait for it. When I add this one, bang, now it suddenly notches out this. So that part's done. There was a little bend here. I'll put a rocker node in between those two and curve that slightly. Now I can bring these down and plunk them on the edge where they would be. And with any luck, I'm going to try to select all three of them at once. Yes, I can do it. Hit the space bar, turn them to rocker nodes, and there they are. All set. So that's how you would use digitize holes to create that. And now we have the full forehead open. You can see I've also gone back and drawn in all these teal, blue, green details here. And they will stitch underneath the purple blue. I didn't mean to disparage anyone who is into red art or filigree stitching, grapevines, flowers, patterns, Pennsylvania Dutch, whatever, basically line drawings with stitching. That has its own set of really difficult problems. Pathing, pathing, pathing. You don't want to be waking up at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning and still hear your machine pounding away trying to figure out how to finish that design that you didn't even bother to path, wandering all over the frame, stitching disparate images here and there and everywhere because it wasn't pathed. That takes a tremendous amount of time and thought to accomplish. With the patches, we have a different problem. We have to figure out how we can get everything to land where we want it. Alignment is the great difficulty with patches. You have much more stitch-dense fields that you're dealing with, and you have to try to decide in what order to stitch them and how to create them in order that you mitigate the difficulties of push-pull, the difficulties that arise from that in the positioning of your objects. There's nothing worse than digitizing something and stitching it out, and all of your fills and everything comes down just perfect, and you get to the final border, satin stitch border outline all the way around it, and everything works great except for 2 inches of it missed by 1/4 of an inch and ruins the whole thing. It can be very frustrating, and then when you try to figure out how to fix it or why it happened, very confounding. It's not logical. You'll have it all the way around just perfect, and then maybe this 2 inches on this side will miss by a mile. It makes no sense. It's not logical. You would think that the opposite side would miss by just as much, but it doesn't. It's very confounding, and you have to be thinking all the time, how am I going to beat that? This would tend to be more difficult in that regard because it's a solid one-piece item. I mentioned previously that you might also consider breaking the purple up into component pieces that would stitch in a different order, and at the same time you can also give each piece different stitch attributes in order to change the direction, the angle of your stitching a bit, and hopefully even out the push-pull in multiple directions. You can see here that I have drawn a lot of these pieces separate from each other. Now I've got this grouped right now so that I don't get it fouled up, but you can see that the nose is a piece, and the glasses are a piece. The top of the head is a piece. The jaw is a piece. Now, and see, now I've done this one in digitized blocks. That's getting a little funky for a digitized block shape. You can do some fairly complex pieces with it. I've also done that with the upper lip and mouth, because then I can create some visual interest by varying the stitch angle as it goes around. You can see the stitch angle flows with the piece. That creates a little visual interest, and it also breaks up the default 15-degree stitch angle. This piece here is also done that way. You can see the stitching bending around as it goes. I believe I created this piece, yes, in digitized blocks as well. In fact, all of them except maybe the glasses. I think the glasses are the only one that's not. That's in digitized blocks, and again the stitch angles flow with the radius of the part, and indeed the glasses are stitched as one solid piece. So the idea behind that is not only to create that visual interest. You can see right down here the upper lip is definitely differentiated from the lower lip, and the nose is differentiated from the upper lip. There's a little line there. Probably show more prominently in real life than it does on the screen. You can see that little shadow I spoke of here on the side of the nose is clearly underneath the glasses, and the glasses up here, it's not very prominent because the stitch angles come close to each other, but this would show more prominently in real life. There's a line right there that shows you that the glasses are on top of the nose. They're also on top of the head, which is tucked underneath it here slightly. And the glasses then, of course, the bow of the glasses would go underneath the ear, which it does. This left ear goes over top of the head, which it should. So there's a little visual interest going on there, but there's also changes in stitch angles and opportunities to try to mitigate all that push-pull that will really give you fits.